Hello and welcome to the LLG Grapevine podcast. You're listening to Helen McGrath, LLG's Executive Director of Policy and Governance, and Dennis Hall, LLG Bulletin Editor.
Hello, everyone.
Now, Dennis, welcome back to the podcast. We've had some great guest contributors, but I certainly missed you. Did you have a nice break?
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, I did. I had a lovely holiday in the Mediterranean, the highlight being Morocco and Casablanca and Tangiers especially. How about doing the Grapevine there for a special edition?
Well, we can only dream. Welcome back and let's get on. What's your first item today?
Well, my first item, for this, I return to the post office scandal, because senior executives and lawyers are currently giving evidence at the inquiry. And as I've predicted, the regulation of lawyers in our sector will be fundamentally changed during the inquiry aftermath. The Law Society, the Legal Services Board, and the SRA all agree major regulatory change for in-house lawyers will happen. But what will it look like? Well, let's have a look at what the Law Society are doing this week. Apparently, former Post Office Chief Executive Paula Venables expressed frustration that her General Counsel put professional obligations above the interests of the business, and this was revealed in the public inquiry into the Horizon scandal. The relationship between Venables and General Counsel Susan Crichton deteriorated rapidly in the middle of 2013 after the lawyer was shut out of a board meeting. This was despite Crichton being listed on the meeting agenda as presenting a paper about the review of the Horizon IT system. Now, it's no surprise that in-house lawyers have been invited to contribute to a study of ethical issues confronting lawyers in the growing sector. And the results of a survey opened by the Law Society last week will contribute to a project to develop an ethical practice framework for in-house lawyers. The project is being carried out by the Interdisciplinary Ethics Applied Centre at the University of Leeds, working in partnership with the Law Society. And Law Society President Nick Emerson said, as both legal advisors and business advisors to their employers, in-house solicitors are in a unique position which can often give rise to competing pressures and ethical dilemmas. We know, he says, that ethics is a key topic the profession would like more support on. As part of its professional ethics program, the Law Society, in partnership with Leeds University, is working on this new resource to support in-house solicitors navigate ethical challenges. The Law Society have launched a survey to hear from in-house members about their day-to-day challenges and ensure that this resource is one that they can use and trust. Helen, this is well worth a look.
Well, the SRA are undertaking a lot of work on ethical conduct at the moment, as are the Bar Council and the Legal Services Board. If you want to hear more about the Post Office inquiry in relation to the conduct of lawyers and ethics, then listen to the vlog this week, because that's a subject of discussion between Dennis and I. Now, as you all know, elections took place last week, and well done to all of you who had involvement with those. Given the challenges, once again, the scale of delivery should not and cannot be underestimated. Well done to all those returning officers. The results, as you must be aware, were a large gain to Labour with the Liberal Democrats. And this is interesting, coming in second, only just, but definitely coming in second, with the Conservatives in third. In fact, every party gained seats with the exception of the Conservatives. The mayoral elections saw a lot of Labour wins. London's Sadiq Khan held on, and that was very hotly watched, but it was West Midlands declaring last, which probably garnered the most excitement, being so close, with Andy Street, of course, losing out to Labour's Richard Parker in Coventry. It required the last authority of Samwell to declare. Finally, the result came in, and Labour, as I'm sure everyone is aware of by now, won the mayoral election. Obviously, voter ID was back in the news and under scrutiny. The media had a field day when it discovered that Boris Johnson had turned up to vote without his identification and had to go back for it. Given that the requirement was brought in under his term of office, obviously lots of conversations occurred around that. Now, the impact of voter ID in this election is still being assessed. Changes to the law have been called for following the inability of a veteran to utilise a veteran ID card, and reports of a man's identification being refused due to them having grown a beard and not looking the same, according to the polling staff. He made an interesting comment when interviewed, actually, because his view was that it was dangerous to rely on the subjective opinion of a volunteer who does this once a year at best, i.e. the polling staff. I certainly heard a caller to LBC Radio state he utilised his wife's passport and no one questioned him. But of course, these are anecdotal and impossible to verify. I'm sure we'll hear more as time goes on. So it seems one more addition to improving the sector coming out of central government are productivity plans. Plans to be productive, Dennis.
Well, indeed. So what are productivity plans? These are in the news at the moment. What do they involve? And what are the new guidelines that have been announced? Let's look at the detail. The guidelines for productivity plans, which the government asked councils to produce when it announced the local government finance settlement, have now been revealed. The government first introduced the concept of productivity plans when it announced the recent financial settlement. In a letter to all council chief executives sent out on the 16th of April, Simon Hoare, the Minister for Local Government, outlined what the plans should include. He wrote, "Local government has already done a huge amount in recent years to improve productivity and efficiency. However," he said, "lockdown and post-lockdown has proved challenging, and councils are looking for new ways to go further." He said the new plans will help the department understand what is already working well across the whole country, what the common themes are, whether there are any gaps, and what more we need to do to unlock future opportunities. Plans are expected to be 3 to 4 pages in length and to set out what the council has done in recent years, alongside current plans to transform the organisation and services, the letter went on to say. And the letter added that council should consider the following 4 questions when drafting their plans. Question 1, how the council has transformed the way it designs and delivers services to make better use of resources. Question 2, how the council plans to take advantage of technology and make better use of data to improve decision-making, service design, and the use of resources. Question 3, the council's plans to reduce wasteful spend within its organisation and systems. And finally, question 4, what are the barriers preventing progress that the government can help to reduce or remove? And councils must hand in their productivity plans by the 19th of July. Councillors must oversee the process and endorse the plan before it is submitted to the department, and the plans must be uploaded to the council's website for residents to see. The department said it is creating a panel to consider the themes and evidence that come from the plans. Interesting. Helen.
Yes, and sticking with government requirements for local authority, data has been published by the Office for Local Government, OFLOG, measuring councils in 27 categories in 5 main areas. These are waste management, corporate and finance, adult social care, planning and roads. In an analysis of the data, the Times has compared council performance. The LGA said that mechanisms were already in place, such as LG Inform, to help councils learn from each other. Councillor Abby Brown, chairperson of the LGA's Improvement and Innovation Board, said that councils continue to face huge financial challenges, with individual authorities facing competing demands on budgets that are often unique to their local area and specific circumstances. Now then, Dennis, I've been on the OFLOG website, and I have to say, I did not find it easy. At the moment, you cannot pick and choose the authorities you want to compare and contrast. I realise functionality might come along later, and we are in the early days of OFLOG, but you essentially start with entering a postcode, and then it brings up the relevant authority. So it uses graphs and shows you the England median score central and lots of small blue squares along the axis for other authorities, which if you hover your mouse over will bring up the name of the authority, and your own authority is depicted on the line by a black circle. There are a number of graphs within each section, and honestly, if the intent is to enable the general public to easily ascertain their council's performance, I have to question whether it's going to be able to do this. Some graphs are easier than others. Finance is more difficult. So some of the questions I was asking myself when I was looking at this was, do people understand the phrases debt servicing as percentage of core spending power, non-ring-fenced reserves as percentage of net revenue expenditure. I mean, I'm struggling with those, and I've been around local authorities 25 years. It's not insulting to suggest that it might be a problem. Can people remember what the median is from their school days? It's not the average, which people might expect, but obviously that can skew figures. So I understand why it hasn't been used, but the government's own statistics suggest that 17 million adults, that's 49% of the working age population of England, have the numeracy level that we expect of primary school children, which is a scandal in and of itself. But you get my point, Dennis. I think far more needs to be done and thought about in terms of the way in which this data is being presented to be meaningful. Now, what might be more useful to understand is what the public actually do understand about councils, and this has been looked at by recent research by the Local Government Information Unit, Dennis.
Well, indeed, Helen. Let's hope this is a bit more clearer, because the Local Government Information Unit have now published a fascinating survey revealing public opinion about the workings of local government. Let's have a look at the detail. Now, more than a quarter of the public wish to have more of a say in how decisions are taken in their local areas. And this is according to a survey from the Local Government Information Unit. An Ipsos survey report for the LGiU noted that a large proportion of respondents think that decisions affecting the local area should be made by an equal mix of residents and local experts. The survey also revealed a lack of knowledge of local government, with almost 2/3 of respondents reporting that they did not know very much or anything at all about the work of their local councillors. And the survey found that 36% of respondents want more information on how decisions are taken in their area, but they don't want to be involved beyond that. 26% of respondents, meanwhile, said they would like to have more of a say in how decisions are taken in their areas, with 8% saying they would like to be actively involved in decision-making. Around half of the respondents supported responsibility for local decision-making being shared between local residents and local decision makers with expertise in their area. The LGiU report said, bringing people into the decision-making loop is fundamental to revitalising their relationship with councils and the services that they deliver. They say, our polling demonstrates that the public is eager for residents' voices to be heard in decision-making alongside experts. Local government, together with communities, must start exploring what that mix should look like, and more broadly, examine what we mean by local representation within a democratic framework. The polling also revealed a rising lack of trust in government across the board, with almost 3/4 of respondents saying that they did not trust the UK government very much or at all, and this is up 7% since 2023. Now, this latter aspect is reflected in other surveys, but the main takeaway for our sector is that there is a public appetite to learn more about how local government works, and that this must surely be a good thing. Helen.
Well, I think authorities need to think about how they might better involve and educate the public about the workings of a council. I'm of the view, and yes, there are other issues, especially around social media, which have resulted in the appalling levels of abuse and harassment against councillors and officers. But I am of the view that a lack of understanding helps to fuel frustration and anger and hostility, which can feed allegations of corruption, for example, levelled against public servants. The problem is with the way in which the local authority can effectively do this. And that's going to depend on the specifics of their own local communities, but also resources. These things take time and money, officer time, and we are currently in a position, well, I should say the sector's in a position of absolute risk in terms of finances and holding down the provision of mandatory services whilst facing a recruitment and retention challenge, the likes of which have never before been seen. So I've not got a magic wand as much as the next person, but I strongly believe that the whole system needs to be looked at afresh, not patching what we have. It's an old and complex system which belongs to the 1930s and which needs to be completely remodeled itself because it stifles innovation, creativity and flexibility. Now, some might say that's a cynical view, Dennis. We do tend to be a little negative by nature. lawyers that is, but I know now is the time to start to effect change of attitude to the way in which authorities interact with their communities, a reset of attitude to really champion and look at the work authorities undertake in a positive way. You only have to look at the way in which authorities mobilised during the pandemic to appreciate they are the lifeblood of communities, and I don't think that's recognised in the way it should be. It's as if councils need a whole PR exercise. There's an interesting article in the MJ this week by Simon Fletcher, who's the chief executive at Lichfield District Council. He talks about astronomical spend in children's and adult services, but that this has the highest complaint levels. He points out that councils have exited the market for their provision, which is now dominated by the private sector, and leaves commissioning the only avenue to leverage any control. And he suggests that re-entering these markets and disrupting them to offer new and affordable price points is the way to go. So there are things that councils can do if they are bold enough, I would say. And on that note, you can read more on the items discussed today and many more besides by going to bulletin number 15, available on the LLG website now. So it's goodbye from me.
And from me too. Bye.
Have a good week.